Yo, it's Aslan, everybody. Again, here to ask one favor quickly. If you listen to us on an Apple or iOS device and you use the podcast app, search for Wake Up Warchant on the podcast app. You'll see two results. Download the one on the right. That's the one that's got more ratings and reviews. If you tap on it, they both look identical, but the one on the right actually has more ratings and reviews. Please subscribe, download off of that one. If you can't, if it's giving you problems for some reason, don't even worry about it. Don't sweat it. It's fine. We're not trying to make anybody's life difficult. It should be pretty easy. Tap on that, subscribe. But if you could do that, that would be great. Pick the one on the right. That's the one that's got more ratings and reviews. We certainly would appreciate it. Let's get to the show.
From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hutchavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It is Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. Coming up on today's show, practice observations, a little bit of a recruiting retrospective, all here on Wake Up Warchant, which is, as always, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. Over at the Appalachia Parkway they're off of. Gorgeous little building. 2 stories. They're at the top floor. Do they still have 7th Hill Tap Room, Corey? Is that still going on?
Yeah, that's still there.
All right.
Yep.
That's them, too. You can hang out with them, but Corey Clark usually hanging out at the Corner Pocket. He will be Friday, 5:30 to 6:30 with Jeff Cameron for the happy hour, and then the pregame show going on over at Hotel Indigo, noon 30. Come join Jeff and Tom. They'll be doing the pregame show. Sometimes Corey jumps on. Maybe Ira will jump on this time.
Right.
Maybe I'll jump on this time. Who knows? But it'll be fun. And then the watch along with Dominic Robinson, myself, Tom Lang, and then Gene Williams and Tom Lane taking you into a post-game show, which is always fun, especially when Florida State wins. Feels like the game's going to get played as we record this late on Tuesday for your Wednesday morning enjoyment. Fortunately for the Lang family, the Hutchavandi family, Tampa looks like it's going to mostly get spared from the catastrophic damage that seemed like possible on Sunday and Monday. But our guy Naples, Mark Pillar, he might be kind of in some dicey stuff. So all of our friends out there in Southwest Florida pulling for you. Hopefully this thing, I don't know, man, dissipates enough or does something wonky that isn't nearly as treacherous as it possibly could be. But football-wise, up here for Florida State, not to be cold and callous because, a whole bunch of people, we're probably going to have millions of people in the state that'll be without power.
Yeah.
But, as we sit here and record this, I don't know if you have any issues with what Dave Dorn said on Tuesday evening, Corey, about the game being played.
Clausen.
When I say Dorn, sorry. I'm so sorry, Coach Clausen. I like you more than Dorn. You got you seem more endearing to me than Dorn. Dorn just seems very, I don't know, nah.
Yeah, I agree. He's aloof. He seems aloof to me.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the right to be yet. Hey, he's got a team in the top 10, though, so kudos. But
and game day, apparently. Game day is going to watch them play Clemson, so crazy. But let's see here. The quote was, this was from Dave Clausen, head football coach of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons on Tuesday afternoon. You certainly hope that the ACC office makes the right decision. If they don't, we will. We're not going to travel down there and put anybody at risk. And then there was ellipses, so I guess he probably said some other stuff. If we feel there's any danger to our players going down there, we're not going to go. So, I mean, I'm not bothered by that. I mean, but I don't know what he's talking about. Is he afraid that the plane might be a dangerous plane ride? I understand that, I guess. Or I don't know if he's talking about the field conditions. I mean, the field hopefully should drain well. Maybe we won't get as much. I don't know if he's talking about our players being in danger in terms of their safety playing on a wet field, on a wet track. But as we record this right now, projections don't look like Tallahassee will get drenched, and the storm should be out by 3:30 on Saturday. So I don't know, but that quote, not to parse something out of a 20-minute press conference, but that's the big headline out of it. Corey, how do you interpret that? Is that he being a little too cautious, or is that the way a guy's got to talk about his football team?
No, it was a little odd that he seemed like almost taking umbrage with Florida State and the ACC wanting to play the game, but then he came back and said, "Yeah, I want to play the game too. We want to play the game." You just want to be like, "Yeah, man, no duh." Of course, if your players are in danger, they're not going to be at risk. If there's any risk at all, they won't play the game. And I think he, the only dumb thing he said, I thought, was, we don't want to be down there without electricity or without food. And it's like, where do you think you're going? That there won't be food brought to you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Corner Pocket will bring you food, man. You know what I mean? They got great wings. Your boys can go in there. Yeah. That was just odd that he was, he brought up electricity and food. Like, what if we get down there and there's no electricity or there's no food? It's like, what? Where do you think you're going? That was an odd statement, but the overarching sentiment we all agree with. Like, yeah, if there's any danger, if there's any risk at all in his players arriving there, if they have to fly through a hurricane, which, don't do that. Avert it if you can. Fly around it, you would hope. They're not driving in it. And then also, if there's going to be, if Tallahassee somehow gets hit by this thing, or if it just floods, if somehow this thing shifts and the rain is terrible and it floods, yeah, they won't play the game. But right now, the way the map looks, and he also said this Tuesday afternoon, like maybe he hadn't gotten the latest update. Maybe he wasn't updated. Maybe he thought there was a better chance that it was going to hit Tallahassee or be closer to Tallahassee than it will probably end up being.
Maybe it doesn't have a good grasp of Florida's geography. We are a weird state, so you hear about this killer hurricane coming in the state, and you feel the capital is probably in the heart of the state. But we're not. We're all the way up here in this.
Right there in that panhandle, baby. I don't know. That's it was a little bit odd, but no. Overall, I didn't really have any issues with it because again, like I said, the sentiment is fine. He wants his players to be safe. We all want everybody to be safe, and they wouldn't play a game in awful conditions, and they wouldn't risk anybody's life coming to this game to play a football game. We got it, but. It does look like, and Michael Alford had a statement out Tuesday after. I guess it was after.
Yes, around 6 in the evening.
Clausen.
Clausen's press conference was about 3 in the afternoon. I think this from Alford came out at 6.
Yeah, and basically said, "You look, we're still monitoring it, but obviously we're as of now we're planning to play. If nothing changes, we're planning to play.
We're confident we'll be able to safely host the football game as well."
Of course, man. I mean, they're not going to tell Wake Forest to come down. Oh, sorry, there's no electricity and. I hope y'all brought snacks because we don't have any in the city for you. City's shut down. No food in the city. It's like the purge out there. If you want food, go out there and just see if you can scrounge up some, but try not to get killed. It's a madhouse. I mean, come on, man. That was, to me, a little bit bizarre. But other than that, yeah, like I said, when I first saw it, I'm like, what in the world? What is he doing? But then when I read the context of the quotes and the full quotes, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. He also said multiple times he wants to play, and he trusts that the ACC and Florida State will make the right decision, and they'll do whatever. They'll put on a safe event. And he just happened to add, if they want us to play and we don't feel safe, we're not going, which I guess could technically be a forfeit, right?
Yeah,
right?
I think, but I don't know if they could probably appeal it. Maybe there's something in the bylaws that.
Screw that, 5-0.
Yeah,
5-0, baby, and you get your guys
State.
Healthier.
On NC State.
On NC, we're on NC State. That's right.
Ultimately, we do have some say in this. Clausen said we want to play, absolutely want to play, but only if it's safe and appropriate. And then he also said, we learned during the pandemic you can't let up if, we want to know as soon as we can. But we control a little bit of it, but we don't control the weather. So Florida State says it's safe to play, and the ACC says it's safe to play, and we feel it's safe to play. We've got a football game in 5 days. 4 days now, so let's get after it, Dave. Bring your boys. Let's dance. Number 23, Florida State hosting number 22, Clemson. Sounds cool. We're ranked. They're ranked. All these little firsts. We had our ACC opener against Louisville. Then last week was our ACC home opener. Now we got our first ranked opponent of the season playing us. Here we are, Corey, thriving. What a fun time to cover the program.
It is, man. It is. It's really cool, and this is a really big game. One thing that kind of bums me out a little, and it pales in comparison to like people's lives being affected and power being lost. And I hope everybody that's in the path of this thing, please take precautions. And also, I don't know what the state is going to be like on Friday if you're trying to drive up to this game. That's a concern of mine. Not mainly because I want everybody to be safe that's coming up for the game. And I don't want you driving through a tropical storm or a hurricane, but also it's kind of a bummer that it might not be the crowd that it was going to be.
Yeah, the home field advantage might not be nearly as home field advantage. My buddy texted me on Tuesday. He's like, "What's going on with this game?" I'm like, "Hey, man, like they're practicing right now, and the track looks all right. He's like, I know. He's like, I'm just worried about having an empty student section. That's what he's concerned about. That a little bit to your point there, fans, turnout, things like that.
Well, and like I asked you and Ira at practice on Tuesday, I still don't quite grasp or understand why you would cancel classes, because many of these students live in the central part of the state. In fact, you would obviously, just by how geography works, most of the in-state kids that go to Florida State, their homes are south of Tallahassee. And you're asking them, I guess, to leave the safe area, which for now we appear is Tallahassee, to drive back into the unsafe area. It really does,
they did it like on Monday. I mean, so they weren't going to hit any. The rain's
no, I know that, but why would you what of all the kids that you just sent home that live in Naples and Fort Myers and Tampa and Sarasota, which is a big nice chunk?
Well, you didn't send them home. You just canceled classes. So if they want to go home and help their family, they can. If they want to hunker down their dorm or their apartment,
but ostensibly you canceled classes so they could go home. Right?
Yeah, if they want. Yeah, you got 30, 40,000 students. There's going to be at least 5,000 that probably want to go home and be with their parents. So, you have to be like, all right, well, we're going to be.
Well, I'm against that. I'm against sending kids back home to their parents who are going to experience a hurricane. I want my kids to stay away from me if I'm going to experience a hurricane. I think there's that's fair. That's fair. It seems like a bizarre. It's the parents that should be coming up to Tallahassee. You should be having another parents' weekend.
Yeah, I think my parents are older. They always were older, and obviously when I was 19 years old, I probably would have felt a lot better. Like, my parents will be fine. Like, now, I was very concerned about my mother on Tuesday morning. I call her. I'm like, I think you should come up to Tallahassee. And she's like, no, I'll be fine. But yeah, if you're a 20-year-old college student, your mom and dad are probably 45, 47. They can handle it themselves. Yeah.
But if Tallahassee was in the path of it, clearly, get like South Florida. Perfect sense. Leave. Cancel classes. Tallahassee is in a really safe area. It just seems odd to send so many kids back down 75 or 95 to go, I guess, be without power for a few days. Or make sure their parents are okay, but their parents are probably in their 40s and 50s. They should be all right. Anyway, that's not what you tune into this show for.
The health of this team is more of a concern than a stadium packed, right, Corey?
Well, yeah, but again, I just – because, I was thinking about it. I brought it up on headlines. Wake Forest, imagine if Wake Forest, if this game was, if everybody shows up, if the students stayed, which I hope they all did, literally I hope they all did. There was no reason for you guys to go anywhere. I hope they all stayed, and I hope it's going to be a packed student section, and I hope anybody from in-state can come, and if they can't, get your tickets on the market so other Florida State fans that are safe and within driving distance can take your tickets. Shanna's doing that, the marketplace exchange thing they have. But
she's in Atlanta. Why can't she come down to the game?
Well, see, that's kind of going to be bad weather in Georgia on Friday. It'll be past.
There's a lot of Florida State fans in Atlanta. Corey,
yeah.
Worry about that.
I know.
Too?
I guess you got to drive to Alabama and head south. That's what I might have to do. But the point was, Wake Forest is not used to playing in road environments like this has the potential to be. Because nobody gives a flip when Wake Forest comes to town. I love you, Demon Deacons. You've had a better program than Florida State the last few years. Clausen is a good coach. Hartman's awesome. Nobody cares when they come to town, man. Nobody ever in the history of the program. There aren't big games when Wake Forest comes to town. But this one is a huge game for Florida State fans. So they would experience the full, the full firepower of Doak Campbell Stadium. Like a rabid, revved up Doak Campbell Stadium, which is something they've never experienced before. It's like our man at Miami said, Van Dyke, it's a real college atmosphere, which kids at Wake Forest don't get to experience a lot. They go to Clemson, and Clemson has a great fan base, and they sell out those games, but they know they're going to be Wake typically when Wake shows up. They're going to beat them by 30 or 40 points. Florida State fans are really invested in this team, and that would be, I think, at least early on, it could be a bit of a shock to a Wake Forest team to be like, wow, why are these people so angry? Why are these people so emotional and passionate right now? Why are they yelling at us? Like, keep it clean, everyone. Be nice, be cordial. But Wake's not used to that. And I think, can you imagine what those Boston College kids thought when they ran out of the tunnel before the game?
I wasn't there, Corey, remember?
Well, I know, but you saw the stadium.
On television.
Right. But that
you got to spell it out. I'm trying to say, Corey, you got to spell it. You got to use your paintbrush to talk about the stadium on Saturday.
So it was absolutely full. and really loud. And those Boston College players must have been like, what in the world is going on? Why are all these people here? We're Boston College. Nobody ever shows up for our games. Like when we're on the road, nobody ever cares. Yeah, these people are into the game. They're treating this like this is a huge game. Boston College isn't used to that, and that was evident. They're not any good anyway, but they absolutely melted down in the moment. And I just think a really home field advantage against a team that's never used to playing in big games on the road where the crowd really cares could steal you a touchdown, maybe could steal you a few points here or there. So I just hope it still turns out that way. My only hope, really, my best hope for this, I don't know what the weather. We have no idea what the weather will be in Tallahassee on Saturday. If there's a chance by 7:30 or 8 o'clock, it's clear skies and it's fine, I would love for them to move this to a night game. Because by that time, there's a chance the hurricane is tracked out of the state, and starting at Saturday at 10 a.m., the roads would be perfectly fine to travel on. There'd be no risk. And if you can get up to Tallahassee for the game, get up to Tallahassee for the game. And I know, look, man, I understand. I'm not trying to be callous. I know there's so much more important stuff than football. But, Florida State fans have been waiting a long time to cheer for a team like this, to go to a game like this. And, you only get 12 of these a year. You only get 7 of them at home, or 6. I can't remember how 6 or 7 games at home this year. It's a bummer for season ticket holders that have been looking forward to this, because you definitely don't want to travel if it's awful weather. Please don't do that. So maybe they can make an adjustment to the schedule just so maybe it doesn't start. If the 3:30 kick is going to be smack dab in the middle of a torrential downpour, which again I think we're going to miss most of the weather, but you never know. Then I would hope they could adjust it a little. Maybe make it 8 o'clock, especially because we have no idea what NC State Clemson's going to do, because they're the ones that are supposedly going to be feeling the brunt of it on Saturday is the Carolinas.
Yeah, so why did I don't want to talk about weather more than we have to, but then why did the Florida game get moved to Sunday?
I mean, I think they're supposed to be really
wet,
really wet. But I would hope. I guess they just don't know if it's going to stall right in the Gulf before it hits, and then that would be a deluge in Gainesville. And I think maybe they just don't want people driving up Friday to Gainesville. They'd rather them drive up to Gainesville Saturday. I would think.
Elena, back in '85, was tracking for St. Pete, and then it stalled out on the coast and just sat there and just dumped rain on the Tampa Bay area for hour upon hour upon hour. But it was good, though, because it weakened before it finally made landfall. But that's your history lesson for
there you
the
go.
day.
Well done, Aslan. Well done. But everybody be safe. That's clearly the most important thing. Be safe. And it does look like the game will be played. I would be very surprised at this point if it gets moved or postponed.
Game that won't be played was on our winners list for mybookie.ag. Use that promo code WARCHANT. I gave you guys 3 games. Say we're going to ride our Jags of South Alabama a little bit longer. 4-0 against the spread right now. I was going to go with the over on the SMU UCF game, but they're not playing the game. So I got to find another one to go for. And I don't know if Corey's got any games he wants me to look at, but you can check out all the games going on across the country, across the world, everything. Esports, hockey, rugby, table tennis, handball, biathlon. Seriously, it's all over at MyBookie. You can bet on anything, anytime, anywhere. It's so easy. Just visit mybookie.ag. Use the promo code WARCHANT on your first deposit to secure that double deposit bonus. That's right. Your first deposit will be matched dollar for dollar all the way up to $1,000. So can't lose when you got that kind of money. You're playing with house money, quite literally, at that point. So check it on out. Right now, Florida State still 7-point favorite. The over-under is ticked down slightly. It was 66. Now it's 65.
So there's 7 now, so they keep going up.
7 points right now. Let's see what's going on with the Clemson game real quick over at my bookie. 6.5-point favorite, Clemson over NC State at home. 40.5 the over-under, so they're definitely anticipating some soggy weather, probably the bookies.
Yes, absolutely. It'll be really interesting what they do with that game because, we'll see. But what if Saturday is just going to be awful? Like for the whole state. And we've seen Clemson do it before. They played Notre Dame that year.
Break your guts, man.
Yeah, when it was basically a tropical storm they played in. And NC State, I think, played Notre Dame one year, basically in a hurricane. But man, that's the marquee game, perhaps of the entire conference slate this season. It would be a bummer if it's played in a driving rainstorm the whole game, and with game day there. So if I know there was talk on Twitter about people wanting them to move it to Sunday. That would make sense to move it to Sunday, and man, that's what Florida State is rooting for. Yeah, move that thing to Sunday. Move it to Monday. Be safe, everybody. Be safe and make sure that thing is played on Monday night because it shortens the amount of time, obviously, that NC State would have ready to get prepared for Florida State. But, yeah, I think at this point everything is on the table as far as these times. I know, Clemson, I know it's an 8 o'clock. It's an 8 o'clock game, right? It's prime time, Clemson, NC State.
I'll check it. Let me wrap up the read.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I love you. Everybody loves MyBookie, too. MyBookie.ag. Use that promo code WARCHANT. Yeah, any other thoughts about NC State Clemson? Sorry, Corey. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but kind of had to.
Yeah, I think, man, that's a good number. I think, the 6.5 because I'm like, man, it's going to be tough to win at Clemson, obviously. But, yeah, who if it's in a driving rainstorm the whole time, it's anybody's guess, right, who plays better than that. It's going to come down to punts and mud and fumbles. So who knows? But, it would be interesting to see if they think at all about moving this game like Florida did. Because they are going to get, you talk about wanting to, you only get 12 of these a year. And, it's just a bummer for all these fans because you don't want them to have to drive through a tropical depression to get to your game.
Yeah. So
that is a real concern. It's not just the player safety on the field and it being awful weather. You've got 80,000 fans going into a small town. That's not the safest thing to do, maybe, depending on what the storm track looks like. And you could always move it to Sunday. Now, I know they don't want to compete against the NFL, but, that's always a possibility, too. And then if they do that, and again, this is just me completely spitballing. This has a 2% chance of happening. But if they realize, man, it is just going to be awful weather. It's going to be 40-mile-an-hour winds. It's going to be 4 inches of rain dumped all over the Carolinas on Saturday. We are moving the NC State Clemson game to Sunday at noon or Sunday at 3, whatever. Then do you move Florida State and Wake tonight? So a tonight game because then the ACC is going to want that primetime matchup, and it's a good matchup. It's two ranked teams, so maybe Florida State and Wake fill that slot on the on the ESPN schedule. I don't know, just spitballing, baby. All right. And game day, come on down. You're not going to want to sit there in a driving rainstorm for 3 hours.
From Tuesday's practice, Corey, any observations? We'll be back out there Wednesday morning. Do check out warchant.com, Ultimate Seminole Sports Source. Again, a few days left to sign up. It's only $1. Still only $1 for an entire year of premium access. Tom Lang shared some observations from Tuesday's practice. I'll share my only cool observation was the music was a little bit lax. A little bit lax. Not a lot of jams bumping. And at one point, a coach yelled up to the podium, to the perch of the DJ, and one of the coaches was like, "Hey, change that shit," because it was. Are
we allowed to cuss on this now?
Well, no. I'd rather curse so I know where I curse in the game in the show, so I can go back and edit it. But yeah, if you ever want, you can curse. I'm just gonna bleep it out, but don't do it a bunch. This makes my job
I wouldn't
difficult.
do that. Come on, man. I'm a gentleman. Well,
They're playing Africa by Toto. They're trying to get ready for a ranked opponent. We
can get real. They played Free Fallin' by our man Tom Petty. Played a lot of. They played Bon Jovi.
They played "Living on a Prayer" a few times, which is fine.
They played "Whoa, Black Betty, Lamb to Lamb." Oh, Black Betty, whatever that song is.
There's some juice in that. There's some juice in that song. There's some juice in "White Wedding" by Billy Idol. There's no juice in "Free Fallin'." There's no juice in.
I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know that "White Wedding" has been played at a football practice ever. We might have seen history on Tuesday. It was just an odd. It was like a Corey's mixtape from '89.
No,
it was an odd play. Well, White Wedding's a good jam. Free Fallin', you better not be dismissing Tom Petty, buddy. I'm not going to stand here for that. But yeah, it was an odd mix. It was a lot of like classic rock and some kind of slower jam rock too. But yeah, they played "Don't Fear the Reaper." Got a little cowbell in there.
The Blue
They had it all going.
Yeah. Well, they also played "Thunderstruck" by AC/DC, which I don't like because, the West Canaan Coyotes were flying high. They didn't know really how to deal with success. And then they come out and that game, that stinker they lay with Thunderstruck playing in the background. So it was a bad omen.
Well, isn't that because they went and saw their teacher/stripper the night before? Wasn't that game?
It was, Corey, but I don't want to blame her. It's not her fault. They showed up. Right. She didn't invite them there. But yeah, I just let's stay focused. Let's handle success well. We got a big one this coming weekend. But what stood out to you in terms of the practice? Ryan Fitzgerald struck the ball well. Ryan Fitzgerald, I think in the video that we had posted from the initial practice or the initial periods of practice, I think he went like 4 for 4, 3 for 3 in the video that's up on the site. And then when they actually did the period 3 tempo team 11 on 11, where they have a scenario where they just want to get the ball in the field goal position, it was 35 yards or so, right down Main Street. So that was good to see.
Yeah, and people are going to roll their eyes when they hear that, like, "Oh, great, he made some kicks in practice." But understand, it's not like the Ryan Fitzgerald you guys see on Saturdays is a lot different than the one that we see at practice sometimes. Like there are days where it doesn't look good. Like it's not one of these things where it's not batting practice where a guy's hitting 500-foot bombs in batting practice, then he gets in a game and something happens. He's not nearly as good. He's not kicking a bunch of 50-yard field goals with a lot of authority every day in practice. So when he does have a good day at practice, does that make sense? Like it means something. Yeah. Because it's not all the time that he does it. It's not like every time we watch him out there on a Tuesday or Wednesday, he's just booming them. And they look like real kicks and good kicks, kicked with a emphasis and authority. They're not that's not the case all the time. So when he does do it in practice, it's not just a matter of, whatever, he's just going to screw it up in a game. Well, no, man, because a lot of times the way he kicks in a game is the way he kicks in practice. So at least he looked good in practice. You know what I mean? I think that hopefully that matters. Like the ball did come off his foot so much, I don't know, with so much more conviction, with pop. Yeah, man. He looked like a real kicker, and he is a real kicker. He's had good moments, and he can boom the ball. It's just he's got off to a really bad start. Now, the good news is we know he can kick it like that. Like he was kicking 43-yarders, and I know that's not going to make anybody do cartwheels, but they were kicked where they would have been good from, 54, 55, 50? I don't know. They were halfway up the net from 43. This is a kid that was short on a 47-yard field goal in a game. And trust me, there have been moments in practice where he has kicked balls that you're like, ugh, that didn't have any juice on it at all. So when he does kick it with some juice, that makes you feel good because he doesn't do it all the time. So maybe he figured something out, man. I don't know. Maybe something changed. We'll see. I know it doesn't matter until he does it in a game, but this is a person that hasn't always practiced well either. So for him to have a good practice, maybe that builds some real confidence with him and he can go translate it to the games. But other than that, I did think A.Z. Thomas, Azarie had a nice practice. I thought by and large, in the one-on-one drills especially, they didn't do a lot of team stuff. It was a lot of scout team work, but they did do one-on-one stuff. And I thought the DBs dominated. Now, Johnny Wilson's out there and he's perfectly fine. He's healthy. He's not getting a ton of reps in one-on-ones. They're working younger receivers. And I don't think Micah Pittman got a ton of reps in the one-on-ones. He got some, but not many. But the guys that ran, it's a lot of tight ends. It's Portier. It's Deuce Spann, players like that, McLean. I thought the DBs played really well. I thought they broke up. I mean, I even said it. To me, it looked like there was a stretch where it looked like last year's fall camp. Remember when the receivers wouldn't catch anything?
Right, yes.
But that was because they just weren't very good. This, I thought, was like the DBs raising their level of competition, and they need to because they know what's coming. It is going to be a lot of one-on-one jump balls, man-to-man coverage. You've got to go compete and make a play against and go make a play and high point a ball, knock it away or intercept it. Whatever you have to do, you have to go compete because you are going to get tested a lot. Boston College, I don't know, they threw one ball down the field the whole game. Maybe. I mean, I literally don't remember them taking a shot. Maybe one shot. Wake's going to take 15. So that's just part of their offense. So it was good to see the DBs compete like that. Also, on the flip side, I know I just talked about how good the DBs were. Deuce Spann had a nice day. He caught 2 deep balls in the one-on-one. And made some catches against the scout team, was a part of things against the scout team. So again, he's had a kind of an odd start to this season where he was a pretty big he's a part of the plan against LSU, and then didn't do jack squat the last 2 weeks. Maybe it was good to see him have a good practice. Maybe that again translates into a game, because they're going to need that guy at some point. He's just too talented to keep off the field. But I thought he had a good practice. Out of the wide receivers, I thought he probably had the best stretch during the one-on-ones.
All right. I was trying to pull up our guy, Phil Jurkovic. Let's see here. Only one throw, 20 or more yards down the field. Only 2 total throws more than 10 yards down the field. And he was 1 of 2. So.
Yeah. Didn't even try, man.
That's gross.
Sam Hartman will try.
20
He's
of his
going to take shots.
20 of his attempts were 10 or less yards. 5 of his attempts were behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. I don't know what they. I just think they knew they couldn't block Florida State, so that was their game plan. I don't think they must not have known or understood that Verse and Lovett were going to be out. But it also doesn't matter. Like Patrick Payton hit him 4 times. So, they just know they can't block, so they have to make a lot of short passes. And my man isn't going to stand in there and let things develop. He's kind of given up on that, it would appear.
Growing up, my dad used to take me to the game at the stadium. We'd watch our favorite team play, and then we'd always eat at Zaxby's. That's why it means so much to me that Zaxby's is the official chicken of college fans. To me, they go together perfectly. It reminds me of my dad and...
Oh, come on, Ref! Are you serious? Get some glasses! Terrible call!
Now I take my kids to the game, and we always eat at Zaxby's too. It's tradition.
We're proud to be the official chicken of college fans. Zaxby's, indescribably good.
And don't forget to listen in for the Zaxby's Indescribably Good Player of the Week every Monday on Wake Up Warchant.
I think during, Monday's press conference, Coach Norvell was very complimentary of what Dave Clawson, shout out Coach Clawson, has done at Wake Forest and talked about, the recruiting aspect of things. Maybe they don't have the names or the stars, but it's all about evaluating players. And they've done a really good job of evaluating and developing players, which has allowed them to have these real nice spikes of success at Wake Forest. It's incredible, kids. Wake Forest is an absolute punchline joke doormat rolled into one, like one of those little Debbie's cakes, like, the swirly stuff in the middle or whatever. Now they're actually a pretty good program, and it probably does come down to the fact that they've figured out the right kind of guys to go for and bring into the program. And it made me think, I'm like, let me look back on this first recruiting cycle that Mike Norvell had, because, in this day and age, obviously nobody has any patience, and it's all about recruiting and talent acquisition. With the portal, let's change things, but you show up, you get this job now. A guy gets fired mid-season, whomever, Scott Frost, Jeff Collins, whoever it is. The replacement gets hired, but really only is going to probably get a few weeks to put together a recruiting class. So, we didn't think he obviously probably didn't have a really good Rolodex, Mike Norvell, coming from Memphis and the recruiting ties he had there versus what he was going to need to come down to Florida State, right, Corey? Now, especially considering what Florida State was coming off of 2 really subpar, bad football seasons. And the 2018 class is something that, is always kind of buried and was kind of like hung like an albatross around Willie Taggart's neck, is that, man, just that class never panned out. And it was a number 10 class in the nation. And you can say, well, hey, obviously they didn't live up to that recruiting ranking. Well, that's who he evaluated. That's who they had to develop. Jordan Young, I don't go through all of them, but I'm going to go through all of them, Corey. Jordan Young didn't work out, left the program here. Anthony Grant.
What class is this?
This is 18. This is Willie, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks to figure it out, which is an unenviable position.
Yes.
Which is a totally unenviable position. It's not easy. I'm not saying that he, showed his colors in this moment here.
I will say this real quick. We give Norvell not the benefit of the doubt, but we point out he was really unlucky in a lot of ways when he took this job. There was just some unlucky stuff, COVID being chief among them, but then there was just stuff out of control that you're like, is this guy ever going to get lucky? Willie Taggart only having 2 weeks for his first class, because that was the first year they moved it up, right?
Yes.
That is incredibly unlucky. Like, I think he ended up salvaging at the time. Now, when Aslan reads these names, you're going to realize it was not a top 10 class, but he salvaged a pretty talented class in 2 weeks, especially because the former staff didn't have anything going on. So he'd salvaged a lot in 2 weeks. Now imagine if he'd had an extra 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, that maybe his whole tenure is different. Maybe he's still here. If he would have had that. Anyway, I just want to point that out. Willie, that was a really bad break that happened to be the very first. Now, he knew what he was getting into. It's not like they passed that the day after he agreed
But it was the
to come
first
to Florida
time in
State.
practice, though. So that might that could have been something a little bit tricky, too, right? They obviously knew that the calendar was changing, but it's when they know it's coming, and then another thing to actually know how it's going to work and be in that situation.
Yeah, right.
There's nobody
so
you can reach out to. There's nobody you can
that was
ask
a
for
bit
advice.
of bad breaks there, yeah.
All right, so Jordan Young, 3-star, left the program early. Anthony Grant, 4-star, doing pretty well at Nebraska, so we'll give some partial credit there. Trayshawn Harrison is now at Oregon State. He was a 4-star. He's in the rotation. Jamarcus Chapman left the program. I think he might have ended up at UMass. Malcolm Lamar's down at FAU, 4-star. Keyshawn, 3-star. Warren Thompson, 4-star over in Arkansas. Briggs, 4-star. Xavier Peters, who I don't know. I think he might be. I think he's at FAU. He went to Kentucky, left, JUCO. Jalen Goss, I think is at FAM, 3-star. Cam McDonald, 4-star. He's with the program. Contributor, good, solid player. Isaiah Boland's at Jackson State. Christian Meadows was a medical disqualification. Jaden Woodby at Boston College did not live up to his 5-star ranking here in Florida State. Chaz Neal starting games for FAU, but not grading out well at all. Christian Armstrong's another guy I think that got medically disqualified. He was a 4-star. DeMarcus Adams, 4-star receiver. I think he went to FAU. I don't know if he's still on the roster. Amari's here. A.J. Litton, Penn State, if I'm not mistaken. He left during COVID. 4-star. Asante in the league, second-round pick, doing great. And then Robert Cooper here with the program, like year 5.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That might have been 4 players. They are all right, good.
Yeah, I think
for
it's here. 5 total. Briggs, Asante, Amari, Cam McDonald, and Robert Cooper.
Yeah. All right, now 2020, man. This is a guy coming from Memphis. His whole staff. I don't think anybody has any Florida ties whatsoever. Even Kenny didn't have it.
But think about here. You guys all heard those names. You would literally say, 5 of those guys out of 25 or whatever it was really did anything at all. Like Keyshawn was going to have
21 guys.
Keyshawn was going to maybe have a decent career until the injury, but none of those other names did anything at Florida State. Anything. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean Warren's doing all right. Arkansas, Anthony's doing
but not
all right.
here. I'm just saying nobody
Yeah.
contributed here except those 5 guys.
All right, so then this 2020 class where you're just like, man, who are these guys? Sidney Williams has struggled with injuries. DJ Lundy, project, that's become, a guy
He's a player.
Yeah,
he's a
scored,
contributor.
Scored a touchdown against the SEC team. Put
That's
that on
right.
your
Well,
resume.
he's also I think he's a decent college linebacker.
Yeah.
Like he's a decent player at least. He's definitely a contributor.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably going to grade out better than Jaden Woodby ever did at linebacker at Florida State, for whatever that's worth. Again, the grading is not the end-all, be-all, but we use it sometimes. T.J. Davis recently left the program, medically disqualified. Darion Williamson led you in receiving this past week, which that's pretty cool. I don't think anybody on that list there ever led Florida State in a game. Marqueson Douglas, part of their 2 tight end set.
Yep.
Good. I
Contributor.
mean, again, you're in a really tough spot. You're just trying to get bodies, and this guy's actually playing all right. Robert Scott, your starting left tackle.
Yep.
Corey Wren, left the program. I don't know how he's doing at TCU. Should look into that maybe. LaDamian Webb, good football player. Not sure why he left. He's at South Alabama now.
Yep.
Kentron Portier.
Yep.
Maybe he's worth keeping on your roster. You got 85 guys. Not everybody's an All-American. He's worth a spot. Brian Robinson was a 4-star. I don't know where he ended up, but
where did he go?
I don't know.
He was the guy, right?
He was
the most highly sought of the 3 receivers they brought in.
Mastromano, who Norvell admitted the previous staff got kind of the ball rolling with, solid kicker. Chuba obviously did not work out. Josh Griffiths did not work out. Tate Rodemaker seems like serviceable backup quarterback. Did a good, admirable job at Louisville. Help you win a football game. Toafili, part of your plans on offense. Schrader's been maligned injury-wise, which is unfortunate, but they do like what he could possibly be. Lloyd Willis was a bit of a swing. I think he got in there against Boston College in the late in the game. I think he's he's someone they were hoping that they can maybe develop maybe another year or so he can become part of the plans. But what are you going to do? Manny Rogers never shows up. Ja'Kai Douglas, he's banged up right now.
Contributor, though.
But, man, you're coming off 5-7, 6-7, 2.5 weeks. Do something, for lack of a better, no pun intended. And, you look at those two classes right there, man. Listen, these guys got plenty of tread left ahead of them here and much more they can maybe accomplish, as opposed to these guys from 18, which is the die has been cast on them. So it really is, man, about evaluation.
Look, man, I think, and it's not a great recruiting class. It's got some guys, but I think I counted 7 or 8 contributors out of that group too. Here we are 2 years later. But the difference is that Norvell wasn't really recruiting any kind of Florida State caliber players when he was at Memphis. You know what I mean? Willie Taggart was recruiting Warren Thompson to Oregon. He was recruiting
Malcolm Lamar,
Harrison to Oregon. He
Thompson.
had those guys were Florida State at that time. 2017 Florida State was a lot different than 2019 Florida State. They were 1 year removed from playing in the Orange Bowl. And Dalvin Cook, Derwin James had just left the program when he's recruiting these guys, when Willie was recruiting those guys. So that was the advantage that Willie had, was that, Florida State still had resonance, a lot of resonance. They still had all those dudes in the league from the championship team and the 29-game winning streak. That wasn't that long ago. When Norvell takes over 2 years later, 2 losing seasons later, it's much worse. And also, he came from Memphis. He didn't come from Oregon, so he wasn't recruiting 4- and 5-star guys at Memphis. So he didn't have maybe the connections and the relationships that Willie Taggart did. Because that wasn't a great class. Even looking back on it, it's not a great class. What he's done in the portal, though, and that was another thing that Willie didn't really get a chance to do, but Norvell's crushed it in the portal. Crushed it. They've done a remarkable job there. But I think your best point, or your overarching point, is it's evaluation. They did a great job evaluating in a short amount of time, and they've done that in the portal too now. It's not like everybody in the world wanted Johnny Wilson. Not everybody came calling for Jermaine Johnson either. I mean, he showed flashes, but that was a great job by them. And then also development, man. DJ Lundy didn't belong on a college football field in 2020. Notre Dame ran right at that kid to the point they ran him off the field. He just didn't belong because he was a true freshman that was thrown in there way too quickly. Robert Scott was too. But they got developed. And then Portier is getting developed. Williamson, you saw what he could be in his brief moment of fame. There on Saturday, they've developed some of these guys too, and that's what should excite you if you're a Florida State fan. Is these guys aren't ready made when they get here. Now you're going to start recruiting hopefully at a higher level where you do get some ready made guys in, but they have done a really good job of developing their younger guys on both lines of scrimmage to go along with the portal stars they're getting.
Yeah, Robert Scott, they went all in on him. They said he's going to be a starting left tackle, and certainly enough he is. I mean, I don't know how elite he is by any stretch here, but I mean, he's been the starting left tackle for Florida State, and they felt pretty good about it. Alex Atkins has always seemed to be pretty pleased with what they had from that. But your standout guys from that first class, like Asante was a guy that basically had committed to Jimbo Fisher. Robert Cooper committed to Odell Higgins. I mean, again, I'm not trying to diminish anything Willie. I'm not trying to beat up on the guy here. But, when you look at this list, you had a very good product. You had a very strong brand. Maybe not a very good product, but you had a very strong brand to still recruit from. And you, to Corey's point, you were at Oregon, so you were fishing in those waters comparably. And listen, you pulled a lot of those guys that you wanted to bring with you, that you had committed to Oregon. You brought them with you to Florida State, and they did not pan out nearly to the level that you wanted. I mean, they said that Trayshawn Harrison was a number 1 athlete in the country, they thought. And again, for them to put the weight in these guys, go after them. Because my thing was, we've been giving so much credit to Norvell for going in the portal and grabbing these guys, but the more you look at the roster, man, a lot of these guys, Kalen DeLoach is a guy that got recruited by Willie Taggart. Again, Briggs, Cooper, again, is a little bit of I think of a an Odell guy more than anything, but Maurice Smith's a guy that he brought in. So I'm like, it's going to be interesting for Florida State fans to try to kind of reconcile. Man, Willie wasn't a good recruiter. Willie had, we had to get rid of him. There was nothing good going on. Then you're looking at this team and you're like, well, this team's actually winning football games. And sure enough, there's a lot of guys starting on this team that were recruited by Willie. But, I guess
I don't think that's
the development of these guys also is something that needs to be credited towards.
But I mean, you just read that list. There's only 4 guys on this team that are from that 18 class. Now Asante was good, but
but overall too, like Maurice is a guy they brought in. Kalen's a guy they brought in.
Yeah,
Akeem's a guy they brought in.
Yep.
I
guess you should have combined the 18 and 19 classes, but we don't have time for you to read 25 other names.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that, right? There's some of these guys are Willie guys. The vast majority are Norvell guys, though. I would say at least 2/3 of the starters are Norvell guys in the sense that he either recruited them or 2/3 of the two deep. So what is that? 44 players. I would say 33 of them are Norvell guys. But also it's Norvell's program. Like these guys, no matter what, these guys didn't play like they're playing now for Willie.
Right.
They just didn't play as hard for Taggart as they do for Norvell.
And good. I don't even know. I can't judge how hard guys are playing. Maybe you can. I can't. They're playing much better. They're playing much better. We cannot.
Yes, they are.
That's clearly obvious.
They're more disciplined. They don't get penalized as much. There's just you know what you're watching. You're watching a team that's more disciplined, and I think I think personally plays harder. At times much harder. Because they just do, and they have a nice ability to rebound. One of the hallmarks of Taggart's teams were when things went bad, they kind of just spiraled out of control. Now, part of that had to do with the quarterback. You had a quarterback that when things went bad, he just spiraled into the ground. This guy doesn't do that, and Willie there could have been a lot of cures for the ailments of what happened to Florida State football under Willie Taggart could have been solved with this Jordan Travis at quarterback. I mean, it makes such a difference. We were talking about him on headlines, and I guess you count him as a Willie guy. I don't know. He was here with Willie, but Willie never played him.
Yeah.
So does he get credit for Jordan Travis, or is it Mike Norvell that gets credit for Jordan Travis? Because Willie, we never saw Jordan Travis on the football field until the day after Willie was fired. It was the first time we saw him on a football field. And he runs for 2 touchdowns and 90 yards in a win over Boston College after Willie left. So he's a Willie guy technically, but he's a Norvell guy. And all these guys, I think they're all Norvell guys now. But the point being, I think Jordan Travis, we talked about this on headlines, what he means to this program, man, right now. Like we talked about earlier in the week too. You go into a game almost always thinking you got the best quarterback. Almost, and now the offense, because the offense is operating at such a high level right now, you go into this game on Saturday, if it's good weather, I think you would be surprised if you didn't score 30 to 35 points. Like, disappointed. If Florida State only scores 30 points only, or 28 to 30 points, I think, wouldn't you be disappointed?
Not if the other team only scores 24, 27.
Well, sure. Disappointed in the offensive production. Because that's how high a level Jordan Travis is playing at right now.
Right.
That just, man, it has been so long since they got quarterback play like this, where you go into a drive, you go into a quarter, you go into a game, confident that dude's going to lead you right down the field. And that has not been the case here in a very long time. What Norvell has done is more so than the talent acquisition. Again, man, it's the development and it's the evaluation of guys that weren't typically Florida State type recruits. He got enough of those guys in here that can play. Now, they're not superstars. Many of them aren't going to the league, but not every player you recruit is going to go to the NFL. Some are just program players. And I think he's done a really good job of getting guys that fit the system. I hate to bring up headlines again, but somebody brought up a really good point when they were talking about the wide receivers, the wide receiver room, and how it's a different guy each game it would appear. And they all seem to really enjoy each other, that it does kind of remind them a little bit of Leonard's teams. which in not every, especially receivers, but running backs too, not all of those guys, not all those best players around the country want to go to a school where they're going to feature 5 or 6 different guys, where you might catch 150 yards of passes one game and 19 the next, or 13 the next, whatever Johnny Wilson's numbers were. Like, that's not enticing to every player. But the guys that Florida State goes after, that's why, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's recruiting those types of players. In the run, I just think that there's something that's happened. And again, we'll see what happens when they lose their first game. We might all have pitchforks in our hands. But so right now it's all kumbaya. But the way they cheer for each other, the way that they really seem to enjoy their other success, teammates' success, you don't see that all the time on football teams. And it's a sign of a team. And that's what's so cool about this team right now, that they do seem to really enjoy each other. And that's one of the reasons that Florida State basketball has been so enjoyable for the last 6 or 7 years. They really do enjoy each other. And it seems like Florida State's got a little bit of that in their DNA. And I think that came from the coach. I think it comes from the coach, his coaching staff, and then I think they recruit sometimes a certain player. So we didn't need you, Travis Hunter. Didn't want you. When are you going to play, man? You ever going to play college football? Sorry, Travis. You know I love you, buddy. We're Gwinnett County through and through.
That's a wrap. Practice coming up later this morning. Check out the website for updates, videos, interviews, all that good stuff. Check out the website, and then obviously the Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 3 o'clock. And at some point we'll have the Warchant report, kind of waiting to make sure that the game is for real going to be played, which I think it is for real going to be played. But also check out warchant.com for the information on that. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thank you so much for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.